PBC goes to Dazn for the rest of 2026. This isn't a super long extension that was announced. It's a number of fights. I was there in the Hollywood Avalon when this was officially announced, and DAZN's treating it like the final puzzle piece. And I'll start off hot. I have been skeptical of this whole thing. It's a conspiracy minded me goes. These all these promoters, because it's owned by Blavatnik, who's been operating at a big loss. He has coordinated events with Ari Emanuel before and TKO, like when they had Canelo Kovalev wait for the Nate Diaz Masvidal fight. So they got to be friends going back some years, doing things like that, coordinating their business plans in such a way that was unprecedented, by the way. And alongside that, knowing the Saudis and the stake they own in DAZN, and obviously the even bigger stake they own in Zuffa, and the stake they own in Paramount and everything, that it's all the same vast umbrella. And I wonder if the plan all along was at some point get legislation changed for the UBO stuff and let these promoters kind of bleed out on DAZN, which loses a lot of money. And then at some point, DAZN will either have to close its doors, or like you postulated to me on the phone, we were talking about it last week, or TKO at some point just buys out DAZN, like Vince McMahon bought out WCW at the end of their Monday Night War, which they're calling this the Saturday Night Wars now. They're kind of likening it to that in the boxing business. And at that point, they would, like you said, assume all the fiduciary duties of the fighters and their contracts and everything. But I'm gonna borrow a line from my wife, Samantha, and we're at the park in Santa Monica. The kids are playing on the swing, and I'm telling her, I'm like, yeah, I know everyone's supposed to be excited. Now all the top promoters are under one umbrella, and it's gonna be DAZN versus Zuffa, and all the promoters can mix and match and make their fights. And I go, but this isn't that. This isn't. If you're just selling me that that's all this is on face value, doesn't feel like that. She goes, yeah, it's like going to a hospice. It's like you're still alive, but your time could be, could be short. And, my guy, Paul Magno, wrote an article about it saying, like, your cells all the way down on the left when it came to PBC coming to DAZN. So I just wonder if that's the thing, is you're putting them all in one place into a platform that's lost a lot of money, doesn't always get the most viewership, and at some point either it'll bleed out to where Blavatnik wipes his hands clean. I mean, because if networks like Showtime and Cartoon Network, right, and like networks that actually produced content that makes people feel a bunch of nostalgia, and like a Cartoon Network sold billions of dollars of merchandise and tons of TV shows that actually hit on DVD sales and merchandise and viewership and cultural phenomena, and they ultimately had to close their doors. Why wouldn't DAZN have to do something similar when they've never turned a profit? And they still have never fully broken through to the mainstream consciousness of the American market. So yeah, I that's cool. And by the way, the presser was underwhelming. It was, in Top Ranks was kind of underwhelming too, in a dreary morning in the Madison Square Garden. But they did have their top young bull there, Abdullah Mason. They had one of their stars there, Keyshawn Davis. Xander and Boots had just been announced and was hot off the presses. And Emiliano Vargas is another big up-and-coming potential star that was there. But it was still kind of overall underwhelming. It felt like you had to acquiesce. You've run out of options, and your only option left is DAZN. And so when PBC announced it, there was no David Benavidez, who, by the way, only has one fight left on his deal, apparently, when you listen to him talk about it. That remains a storyline we'll be covering, and we have covered. Gervonta Davis wasn't there. He's not going to be fighting the rest of the year. He's got his legal problems. So your two foundational pieces weren't there. It shames me to say the IBF Bantamweight champion that they had on the dais, I had never heard of him before. And, you know, I like Jesus Ramos in the middleweight division, and Rolly was there to have his fight with Teofimo, and Fundora might have been the most significant fighter on the dais alongside Rolly. They certainly were, those two. But, you know, compare it to the pomp and ceremony of when they announced they were starting the PBC in 2015 on NBC, you know, with Sugar Ray Leonard commentating and all of that. So, or Fox, when they announced they were going to Fox. It's not that. It's not that kind of, yeah.
What is a promoter without a TV deal? It's a small hall show circus act. There's a huge bright line between a promoter who has a TV deal and a promoter who doesn't. Now, for TV, that's the old school term, right? Obviously, now you can be a streamer deal. What I mean is a broadcast deal. That was always the bright line between the promoters who are really in the game and having power and the guys who are trying to get in the game. We're looking to get TV deals. And there were only so many TV deals at one time to go around, especially when there were only 3 channels, right? There was only so much real estate out there for a boxing promoter who wanted to put on big shows. So the reason that maybe a PBC on Fox and a Top Rank on ESPN announcement was so significant was because a television platform would only take on one promoter. And you'd be king of the roost. You'd be able to run all your shows on this one platform, and anybody who wanted to fight on ESPN or wanted to fight on Fox had to fight with your promotion company banner at their back. And that's how you sign big talent, because they wanted to be on those platforms, want to get that visibility and be able to generate that kind of money. Now that the streamers are in play, now that the streamers are in play and network television is largely out of the game, there's only one thing for a platform like Dazn to do. It is exactly what they've done, and they've done it, as you've pointed out on many occasions, with a lot of help and been able to function in the red, the deep red, for a very long time to get there, which obviously other in the past television networks would be unwilling to do. So they've functioned that way long enough with this much of a windfall from other entities to be able to get to this stage. What ultimately happens, though, if it goes this way, where a monopoly is being formed in one platform, essentially having all promoters in-house, you get a lot easier road to the fights promotionally, but the promotion companies and the promoters themselves lose a lot of power and leverage because there's so many fights that can be made cross-promotionally. And while the fighters are signed to the promotion company, if the promotion company is exclusively signed to the platform, then the platform can go to the promoter and say, we want this fight, and that fight being made is in the best interest of the promotion company to maintain their deal on the platform. And no one promoter, when all these promoters are in the same place, can really go to another platform and say, sign just Top Rank over here, sign just Matchroom over here. Like, that won't exist anymore, because the first thing that the other platform will say is, well, who are your fighters going to fight outside of your stable? And none of these promoters have such a big stable with all the stars like PBC was promoting themselves to have, like Top Rank at one time could claim to have, that you could fight all your guys in-house and not need to work with another promoter to consistently put on big fights. No promotion company is in that position right now. None. They can put on mid-level fights, they can build fighters, they can put on good shows. But when it comes to major blockbusting fights, now the talent is spread thin across so many promoters that they need to work with each other to consistently do that. The best position of any promotion company, by my estimation right now, is Queensberry. They've got the most fighters in a single division with mandatory challenges to the world title, and I'm talking about the heavyweight division, in-house, where they can fight long enough in-house and have world title fights to really kind of stand alone on their own. And they're at the zone. So I would say they're in the strongest position right now at the moment, right? As far as somebody who could really go somewhere and be like, hey, we can do this on our own. The danger is that what we just saw with Dazn making a direct deal with a fighter and them kind of going out to other fighters saying, hey, we can sign you directly outside of your promoter, is a model that makes more sense ultimately for the platform.
HBO did that a few times. Well, most notably with Roy.
Exactly. And so what the promoters will ultimately end up being are small farm teams to see who's going to create the next big stars. And then the next big stars, once their contract promotionally is up with the promoter, will sign to the network. And they are going to use all these promoters to go out and find the next big talents, make the fights at a certain level, pay the promoters to stay on platform, and then as these stars elevate, the platform signs them or Zuffa signs them, and they go to Paramount. And what we've also seen with this Ryan Garcia, Conor Ben shit is they're gonna start playing nice. It'll be exactly what we've described. This is really one house with two wings. You're gonna start these inter-network deals. Oh, okay, UK and Ireland is gonna show the fight on that territory, and in the US it'll be Paramount, and then Zuffa will have a piece of this, and we got Golden Boy in it, and it's like that is the long game where the promoters become facilitators, really, and not power brokers, and the networks become the powerhouse that are willing to create two silos that ultimately, when the money and the business makes sense, will build a bridge between the two. And what will stand there in the middle, what will be like the pinnacle that is above both silos? Netflix. Netflix is a super big, nasty show. If you and one of your two silos can create a superstar big enough to draw attention globally on a platform the size of Netflix, you can mix and match either from two silos or make it all in-house. That's when Netflix steps in and says, okay, we'll take that. Thank you very much. Just for one night. Don't worry. You can get these motherfuckers back. But paying everybody enough to put this guy on the stroll for 12 rounds. Make him walk the block, 12 rounds. And that is the new game. That is authoritarianism. That, if you were going to put it in government terms, is fascism. Like, that is what's happening in the world, and that is why boxing is always a microcosm of what's happening in the world. It is corporate. Boxing has always been a poor man's sport with a bunch of criminals and street hustlers and low-level execs trying to climb their way to the top of a corporation that they've built up in their mind, but can do it because there's such little regulation and so little uniformity around the world that you can find your way into this business, this is why all these kind of people get in this business, and some of them have a great deal of success. They are corporatizing this shit. This is what is happening. And that is, again, a microcosm of what's happening around the world. Watch it unfold in boxing. UBO or no UBO, the low-level fighter-promoter relationship has got to go.
Yeah, and again, even as TNT enters the fray, that in a moment's time could be changed when the Paramount Warner Brothers Discovery merger goes through, and then that's just owned by the same umbrella that Zuffa is underneath with Paramount and everything, and so that's not really two competitors in the media space at that point anymore. So for now, in a very short interim, sure, TNT entering is exciting, and I am happy about that, and I love the fight show they got going on. I think that's something boxing really needs. But yeah, again, the mind I've had, to put it simple, is at some point DAZN bleeds out too much, and their new broadcast partner eventually is assumed by their competitor right now in Paramount, Skydance, acquiring TNT and Warner's Discovery, and they all the promoters, they lose out on their talent, like you said, a little bit one by one, whether it's signing with DAZN right away, and if the UBO gets passed, this makes it that much easier to then just consolidate all the talent, buy it off of DAZN, either buy DAZN or DAZN folds, and you take all the remaining talent into the fold of the UBO, and then that's it. That's ball game for what I think Zuffa's long play would be all along. But even if that doesn't happen, you're outlining how the house wins no matter what.
Of the play. That's one direction a fighter could go, and it will be dependent upon that fighter's marketability, in which region that fighter has support, how global the fight that can be made with that guy and whomever else is. Those market markers, if you will determine the fate of said fighter and ultimately where a particular fight can go. But the upside, I believe, will be we'll get to a place where no fight can't be made. Right. All this other side of the street shit is just
well, you'll need boxing people with quality control regardless of the platforms we're talking about. You'll need guys that know what the right matchups to make and to
those are the guys. That's where promoters will function. Those are the guys that keep the keep busy fights. Like the network doesn't want to match make 24/7 for all these different fighters and all these different promotion houses.
Well, that's been a big problem for them. HBO had matchmakers. They had guys that knew boxing and they knew which fights to pass on and which ones to push through to the finish line and which ones to,
but they had
chase after and force the promoters to do. But
they had a finite amount of broadcast space. Streamers don't have that problem. You can have 3 fucking fights on the same night on DAZN. You can. Now, will they put a major fight up against another major fight on the same night? No. They're not going to counter-program themselves like that. But to DAZN's credit, almost any given weekend, I would say from Thursday through Sunday, at some point you can click on DAZN and find a relatively small fight somewhere. You can find boxing in some corner of the world. You can find a small hall promoter. You can find a decent show on DAZN any week, right? You couldn't do that on HBO. You couldn't have boxing on HBO every weekend or 2 or 3 shows on the same weekend.
Yeah, less is more sometimes. Part of me kind of misses that, the quality over quantity. But yeah, anyway, go ahead.
Streaming, those are 2 different models. Like, you tune in or not, the stream exists. You don't have to. It's not appointment television either. You don't have to watch it when it comes on. You can watch it when you get home. You can watch it the next morning. If it's not a super big fight, social media is not going to spoil it for you. Like, they are doing quantity, and they're letting the promoters and the fighters and all of the fights that are happening ferret out quality. And when it gets to the quality level, when you say, okay, we got a star in this guy, or we got an up-and-comer here, oh, this guy's world champion now, and he's got a fan base, and this fight can be made over here, that's when the network starts getting involved. And then if you get a fighter who has the kind of draw and longevity potential, you start to box the promoter out and be like, come on over here and deal with me directly, which is what Turkey has done in a microcosm to the networks. And that model is working. So let's not forget that in every space we've spoken about on this episode, Turkey's involved. Now with PBC, with the one space where he didn't seem to have involvement. But actually, to be fair, he's been involved there for a while too, because he's using PBC fighters on ring shows.
And if he is slated to have to get out the game by 2028 and 2029 by his own admission because of health concerns, then who assumes his power and his collection of all these strings being pulled? That's my question.
At that point, the network honchos will inherit his masterpiece, if you want to call it that, will inherit his structure, and who knows who will be at the helm at that point, or if he'll just take a back seat and dictate to somebody else, like, the boots on the ground.
I think, I can't say it here, but I think there's been a hand above his strings that it's almost convenient that he'll have to get out sooner or later, because I think he's been used. Yeah, right.
I am less convinced of that to that extent than you are.
Okay.
I think they're all right now. Yes, there's enough strings to some extent to go around, but at this stage, this guy is definitely the puppet master, and it's his money. Now, whether they're gonna fuck him out of his money or outplay him on the strings down the line, maybe, but more likely, in my estimation, is that there's enough of this pie to go around, and they're gonna eat their slices.
It's not his money though. It's someone's money that's being given to him. It's the government's money of Saudi, and I think I can't get into it explicitly any longer, but I think there is a string holding there. I think there's a puppeteer holding their strings, even above someone like Mohammed bin Salman's head. But whatever, we're not right now.
The discrepancy between you and I is whether or not there's a pyramid of puppet strings.
Yes.
Or if there is a more landscape of connected common interests,
okay,
where these people are working together, and they're all in their own best interest, but collectively they can get what they want out of the game without taking over one from the other. Right? All right. We're in the we're deep in the weeds now. We're deep in the weeds now. Well, this is what I think.
You laid it out good. Paramount, DAZN, and above them, Netflix. I think you laid out a pretty good. That makes a triangle, by the way, too. I'm just being funny. That is a pyramid.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. Yeah. I just think in the red keep in that upper pyramid, maybe they all sit around the orb. Nobody's out of the room. They're just that's where the orb is.
All right. So, but we'll see. We'll see.